You're listening to Destiny for Nomads, the ultimate podcast for digital nomads looking to take their lifestyle to the next level. I'm Laurent Autin, your host and fellow remote worker. Originally from France, I've lived abroad for over 2 decades, spending 20 years in Southeast Asia before settling in Helsinki, Finland in July 2019. In this exciting first season, we'll be sharing invaluable insights and tips on how to prepare for becoming a digital nomad. Whether you're just starting or a seasoned traveler, our guests will provide you with everything you need to know to optimize your nomadic life, no matter where you are. So grab a cup of coffee, sit back, and relax. Welcome to Destiny for Nomads. Destiny for Nomads is brought to you by Medical for Nomads. As a digital nomad, remote worker, or expat, you never know what health issues may arise while on the go. Travel health insurance can cover minor ailments like a scooter crash in Thailand. But what if you need primary medical treatment like kidney stone removal in Dubai or heart surgery in the UK? That's where Medical for Nomads comes in. Unlike travel health insurance, Medical for Nomads offers real medical insurance designed specifically for global nomads, expats, and remote workers. And it covers all the big things. With just a 2-minute application process, you can get covered within 24 hours. Don't leave your health to chance. Visit medicalfornomads.com to protect yourself with comprehensive medical insurance. And as a special bonus for listeners of Destiny for Nomads, check out the show notes for a 10% discount on your next Medical for Nomads policy. Take care of yourself and your health with Medical for Nomads. You deserve it. Hi, thank you for tuning in. Joining me from the UK today is Mark Round, a veteran of the international financial services industry. He started his career in insurance with a UK financial institution, now part of Banco Santander. After decades of working in international finance across Europe, the Middle East, and Asia, Mark is now semi-retired and stays perennially young through several part-time senior level positions with internationally focused startups and SMEs targeting global expansion, which provide plenty of opportunities for business travel, such as being the executive chairman of For Nomads Group, which owns Medical For Nomads, the main podcast sponsor. Hey, Mark, thank you very much for joining us today. So, do you consider yourself what? A former expat, a remote worker, a digital nomad, a global traveler? What's the best definition?
Yeah, I think there's two categories there. I mean, the former expat, because I'm no longer fully living overseas.
Hmm.
Um, Although the sort of nomad tag fits me also, I guess, because I still sort of travel extensively across mostly Southeast Asia these days. So normally I'm gone for I leave for normally 4 or 5 weeks at a time, and I do that 4 or 5 times a year.
Okay.
So the remainder of the time I'm based here in the UK, but I'm still rather nomadic in the way I work. Um, it sort of still qualifies me to talk about nomad stuff.
It does. What do you like about it?
For me, it's as old as I am. There's always opportunities coming your way when you're traveling, and that may
Hmm.
be from just a new experience to somebody you may meet that ordinarily you would not. Um, Different walks of life. I think, and each to their own, but you can get cocooned into a sort of a lifestyle that sort of, whilst you might be happy, it sort of restricts opportunities. So if you're looking for something else, I think it's important that you get out there and find it. And for me, that always recharges my batteries when I travel. Um, I always look forward to coming
Hmm.
home, but I always look forward to going back out there again.
Yeah, I understand. I'm kind of the same now. But you work across many different countries. So I'm interested in knowing what are the key lessons that you've learned from your international experience.
Well, with working, I think like anywhere, you have to have a certain discipline about things in your approach, uh,
Mm,
especially if you're working in an environment that nice beach, sunshine, that kind of thing is
yeah.
usually on your doorstep, wherever you are. And if that's the case, then work-wise, I think you do have to maintain some kind of discipline, whether you work for a company or work for yourself. But then the life balance, I think, is when you, especially when you're overseas, is there's no point going somewhere if you're not going to enjoy the local sort of cultures, uh, the weather, um, and everything that it's got to offer. So for me, my lessons are that one, I hardly ever give up an opportunity to go somewhere, especially if I've not been there before. Apart from
Mm.
typical war zones and stuff like that. Uh, but yeah, uh, I think always seek out every opportunity that comes your way. Look after yourself. Um, you know, don't do anything too foolish. Keep your wits about you. But over and above, enjoy. Just enjoy your experiences whilst you're traveling and whilst you're working overseas. Um, it's greatly enhanced my life, and I think it would for a lot of other people too. Um,
How did it enhance your life?
you become more world. Well, I became more worldly. You see, if you say just live in the UK or France, Belgium, wherever you're from, you tend to just think that your world it just revolves around you where you are. It's like everything is about where you live, and
Mm,
it's not. There are so many different cultures out there that unless you live and breathe and experience them for yourself, you won't fully understand them. So I think it's given me a better understanding and a lot more tolerance than perhaps I would have had for other peoples and other cultures. So yeah, I call that an enhancement because when I know when I come back here, I don't have a sort of a tunnel vision. I have a very open mind about what's going on in the world, and a lot of it's down to me experiencing things along my travels. You can read what you want in the news, but yeah, when you go there for yourself, then you can fully understand how people live and work in places that you visit.
that is very true. This is one of my greatest learning also from living abroad since 1999. I call it perspective. Like I have a lot more, bigger perspective on things, which makes me appreciate what uh, developed countries provide to the society. Yeah, completely. I can completely relate with you. In so many years of traveling, do you remember that one of the worst experience you ever had?
I do. I've been in a few sort of earthquake scenarios whilst
Ooh,
uh, in Asia, and a couple of those were scary. I remember one time. This is going back to about 2004, and I was doing a conference on the 18th floor of a building, and all of a sudden, it felt people were looking at each other like they got vertigo or something, a little feeling a bit like motion sickness. And then when we saw the chandeliers rocking from side to side in the room we were in, we realized that there was an earthquake going on. A
wow.
little panic ensued, but mostly we stayed calm. And after a period of, it felt like minutes, but it would have been seconds, then the building stopped and steadied itself, and we were able to make a orderly evacuation downstairs, not the lift. And that was quite
Mm,
scary, and it reminded me actually. I mean, the building, I might say, not a window was broken because it's built on this sort of pivotal sort of engineering marvel, um, like a huge
yeah,
sort of board built on to cater for these things. But nonetheless, it was quite scary. And then I remember back in 2002, uh, we lost some clients in the Bali bombings, and then we were in Jakarta at the time, and then they became closer
really.
to home.
Wow.
Went off not half a mile away, and even in our building, some of the windows were gone, and the tremor that we felt from it was quite scary. And for a period after that, for about a year or so, it was quite unnerving. We stayed where we were, everybody did, and keep calm and carry on, that kind of approach. But it was quite scary because fundamentalists were around, extremists were around a lot then, and it was a little bit of a dangerous place to be in. It could happen again, I guess, but it doesn't feel
Mm,
the same anymore now. It feels safer. The world, to me, feels a bit more safer with extra
mm.
security and so on. So yeah, earthquakes and terrorism has played its part in giving me bad experiences, but again, experiences nonetheless.
Yeah, yeah, indeed. That was like yes, real experiences. Never had experienced anything as bad. But let's be a little bit more happy. Let's put a positive note now.
Yeah.
What were your best experiences? Can you pick one?
Best experiences. I got married again to a lady from Indonesia 23 years ago, and we had two children whilst living
Mm.
overseas in Indonesia. So that was a good experience, and I'm glad I mentioned that actually, just in case you watch this podcast later. But and I think also some of the friendships that and I've gained over the years, usually born out of business relationships that have ultimately come solid um,
Mm.
uh, friendships thereafter. So I value those as well greatly. Um, and yeah, and again, I said it before, but the people that you meet along the way, there's some amazing things that you will see and do that you wouldn't if you stayed put.
Funny you're mentioning the friendships because I have the same. I've developed like strong friendship relationships throughout the years living abroad. And I don't know about you, but the one thing about the living abroad is that you meet people, then you leave or they leave, and then you go, each one goes to his new things, right? But one
Yeah,
day you might meet them again, and when you meet with them again, it's like you left them yesterday, right?
yeah,
Because the relationships
true.
are so strong that it's just so easy to get in touch again and want to talk again. Is that the same
It's
with you?
true. It
Yeah.
is. It's true, and I mean, it's a very transient world these days. So people, like you say, people don't stay very. Uh, 3 years is a sort of a long time these days to stay anywhere.
Mm.
Uh, Sometimes it's 3 months or less. But you're right. When you do bump into people, you do. The friendships are renewed very quickly. Um, I think also it's a bit like there's some common ground with people who are doing this different roles in life, but traveling and working and living in different countries. There's a common bond between everybody because you're all experiencing at one point or another the same kind of thing. It's a bit like naturism,
Yeah.
Uh, you could be a doctor or you could be a street cleaner. Once you're standing there naked together, there's nothing in between. You're of equals. You're the same. And I find that those barriers,
Yeah.
whether they're social or other barriers in place, they're broken down by people who are working overseas, and everybody becomes one.
All right. Let's change gear, and let's get into today's main topic, which is healthcare for digital nomads. We're going to talk. You're the expert, so I'm going to ask you, technical questions because it is a critical topic. So when we're talking about healthcare for digital nomads, first question, give us the big picture. What are we talking about?
In a nutshell, we're talking about medical insurance. It's insurance provision for if you ever need medical treatment, uh, uh, whether it be outpatient, inpatient, in hospital, or worst case scenarios, if you need to be flown home, repatriated to your home country,
Hmm.
or even worst case scenarios, if death should occur, then medical evacuation and repatriation is also taken care of. So for me, it's an essential part of being overseas, provision for medical insurance, because you just never know when things are going to happen. And I don't know many people who've been through their lives without something occurring now and again, whether it's a minor illness or even a major one. Unfortunately, it does happen to us all. Um, and I think it's important that
Yeah.
those aspects are taken care of. But yeah, so it's
Yeah.
the closest thing I can say is if you pay for your healthcare privately in your home country, then it's the international version of that.
Yeah, talking about things can happen. I remember my former partner got dengue fever, and she had to be evacuated to a bigger city. So at the time we were living in Cambodia, she had to be evacuated to Bangkok, and that was covered by the insurance. And I've talked to many digital nomads, and many of them have told me, oh, for the first years, never had an insurance. And I'm sure this is the case out there for aspiring digital nomads who don't think about it, or other digital nomads listening to this podcast will not have an insurance. Why is it so important yet underrated?
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't think it's underrated. I think people think it's like, people will readily insure their car, but they won't insure themselves, for
Mm,
example. So
mm,
they'd rather insure a possession than when you're feeling fit and healthy, you don't feel anything's going to go wrong. So it's the last thing on your mind, and nobody wants to think about mortality and stuff like that, and illness even. So, but people do readily insure their cars, and they say yes, but it's illegal not to. And I say, yeah, but only third party. But you've insured yours fully comprehensive, the top insurance. Why have you chose that? So because it's worth a lot of money. Well, how much is your life worth? So, it's. I think
yeah,
it's, and also it's generally people I think don't like to be felt like that they're sold something, or because generally life insurance or medical insurance is sold to people, and people don't like that aspect. Um, we've tried to cater for that, by the way, in Medical for Nomads, giving people the choice to do everything themselves if they want to, which we feel is an important part of what we're offering.
what are some of the misconceptions around insurance, medical insurance? You mentioned price. It's not a misconception not necessarily, but it's a big factor. But are there like other misconceptions? Like, for instance, I can mention one. I know a lot of digital nomads would choose a travel insurance and not a medical insurance, thinking that the travel insurance could cover them fully.
Yeah, this comes across a lot. Actually, I think there's room for both of those insurances in people's lives. Travel insurance, I think, it's a must for things like delayed flights, lost baggage, lost money, lost possessions, things like that. Um, Now, we don't cater for things like that because we're not travel insurance. We are looking
Mm,
completely at the medical side. With There could be exceptions, but with the travel insurance, we found in our experience that a lot of instances where they simply won't pay out on medical claims. And this is the most awful experience people can go through. I've had a personal experience with somebody I know that gone through this. Uh, Whereas a medical insurance, especially through Medical for Nomads, if you enter a hospital, once approved, then all the expenses are taken care of for you. So you don't
yeah.
have to pay the hospital, we pay the hospital on your behalf. With travel insurance, also some claims are settled directly. It hardly ever happens. Then you have to submit a claim thereafter once you've settled the bills yourselves. And this is where the fun starts, uh, because they'll request everything about your previous medical history. Um, this may not apply across the
Mm,
board. In my experience, is the answer I'm giving. Uh, and once they've obtained all of that, which is no mean feat, by the way, it's not easy to obtain your medical history, and they look for any reason why they won't have to pay on the claim that you've made. Um, it, so for me, I think you should be very cautious when using travel insurance for medical procedures, um, because they don't always pay out. Whereas a medical insurance per se that's designed specifically to do what it says on the tin is your best friend in times like that. So for me, travel insurance should be used for delayed flights, missed flights, lost baggage, stuff like that, because it's cheap and
mhm,
it's cheerful.
yeah.
And also, let's not forget that travel insurance will only cover you for a maximum period during any one trip. So you can't take out an annual travel policy and expect it to cover you throughout the year. at some point you would have to go back home and come back out again, normally 30 days. Although
Mm.
some of them do 3 months, 90 days. With medical insurance, you're covered throughout the annual term of your policy, wherever you are. And of course, let's not forget, with travel insurance, generally you have to be a resident of the country it's sold in. So I think in a nutshell, there are too many restrictions and not enough benefits on travel insurance compared to buying something and have it in place specifically for what it's designed to do, which is take care of you in the event of a medical, either emergency, or if you wish, you can just choose for day-to-day treatment options as well.
Yeah, because you're not invincible and you're
You're
traveling
not.
abroad. Things can happen.
It's true.
Yeah.
I mean, of course,
And
I do
you can
understand.
get,
If you've held an insurance policy for 30 years and never made a claim, then you might look back and think, well, I could have spent that money on something else. But it's not the point. The point is, insurance is about risk, and the risk if you're receiving some
yeah,
medical treatment whilst overseas is actually quite high.
yeah. And it can be very expensive if you want top-notch treatment. I'll give you an example. Going back to Asia, you're in Thailand, you want the best treatment for yourself. You go to those very, very these fantastic hospitals in Thailand, premium quality, premium prices too. But like you
Yeah,
said, if you have an insurance, you just give them your insurance number. The insurance will pay everything. This is as simple as that. You don't have to disburse any money, and we're talking a lot of money here with a lot of zeros. So yeah,
yeah,
very
it runs in sometimes hundreds of thousands.
yeah,
It's very expensive. In fact, we've seen, and we know some people personally where they've had to organize GoFunding pages for medical treatment because they've been in hospital and it's quite serious. One particular gentleman couldn't even get home to see his family. He was stuck in a hospital in Malaysia because he didn't have appropriate insurances in place.
yeah,
And we don't use these. We don't broadcast them in our publications because it's quite sad. But nonetheless, it's the reality. It can happen.
yeah. Definitely. If you're a digital nomad, I hope you are convinced that you need an insurance, a medical insurance. Now, the next question is, how do you select an insurance provider? What do you need to pay attention to?
Okay, so that's another good question because I suppose firstly, brand people look at a brand, which is sometimes good, but you know, um, it's not always the case. I would say the best aspect for me would be to choose somebody with portability. Uh, in other words, if you're going to travel from country to country, not every day, every week, but even after every few years or so, then it's important to be able to take that medical insurance with you to the next country that you visit. And I mention this because I
Yeah.
know some of the larger groups are not so portable. So there are countries now, around 20 around the world. One of the largest one is Middle East, the UAE, for example, where if you take you under their guidelines, their sort of their laws, and some major insurance companies adhere to this, you have to take out a insurance policy that's offered by a licensed insurer in that country. And this is far from ideal. And the reason I say that is because whilst it covers you whilst you're there, when you leave, the cover would no longer apply, especially if you go to another country that says the same thing.
Mhm.
Because then you would have to stop that one and start another insurance policy with another company. If you did that, then the chances are you would not be covered for anything you've been receiving treatment for because it's known as a pre-existing condition. So look for a company that's fully portable in its approach that allows you to take its policy wherever you go around the world from one country to another, and doesn't insist that you have to opt for one in that licensed area. There's no sort of you, I've tried to Google this myself. There's no real guidelines on this, but if anybody's interested in finding out more about that aspect, if they want to get in touch with us, we can advise them accordingly.
Any other elements you should pay attention to?
Well, good reputations. I find that it sounds like I'm promoting what we're offering, and I sort of, I don't apologize for that, because in answering your question, we looked at all these aspects of what we would be looking for before we decide what we want to offer
Yeah.
to our own clients. So the portability is key, but also the claims perspective. What are the claims history like of the company that your insurance is with? How old is the company? And I mean that in a good way,
Mm.
because generally, if it's a younger fledgling company, they've started with a blank sheet of paper and are able to design something that's specific to people in this time. Whereas if you've got a 250-year-old insurance company that's always done the same thing for so long, it's very difficult to change. So whilst it's important to have a recognized company, I guess, also there are good opportunities with newer options out there. But yeah, look at what they're offering. Look at the cover levels they're offering. Um, I mean, for example, for ourselves, we offer 4 different cover levels, starting with major medical. If somebody just wants to cover the things we just discussed, like cancers and stuff like that, which 1 in 2 people get cancer these days. It's alarming. So if you just want that kind of
Yeah.
thing covered, that's going to be obviously cheaper, an option, than if you don't want all the other stuff covered, like toothache and stuff like that. Or I've cut my finger, I need to go to the doctors. So look at what companies are offering in terms of options. If it's just one option, then I wouldn't choose that, because ultimately you're going to pay for something you might not use. So look at the different
Mm.
levels of cover that a company is offering you, and see which one suits you, and this, of course, suits your budget. It's the reality of it is everybody wants Rolls Royce cover, but you can't have that if you've got Mini Cooper budgets. But you can have
Of course.
some kind of medical insurance to suit you.
And let's be honest. When you're young, the chances to get sick is lower than, well, while you get older. But still, it can happen. What about another element I'm thinking about, because I used it in the past and I mentioned it earlier, the evacuation. How important is that?
Yeah, it's very, because I think you did actually cover that, when you said that, for example, if you're in one country, where they don't have suitable, um, medical facilities, some don't anyway, some don't for the condition that you've got. If that's the case, then you need to be able to go somewhere else. And if evacuation is what you've, generally evacuation and repatriation can be added on as an extra, and it's very cheap. It's not expensive at all. It's always worthwhile. If companies don't offer that, then I would
Mm.
consider whether to use them or not, because it's
Oh,
a very
really?
important
So it is
aspect.
that important.
Yeah, but we have a lot of clients, for example, in Bali, when they live there for the lifestyle, which is fantastic. But at the same token, they don't necessarily want medical treatment there, so they fly, and it is usually to Bangkok or Singapore, um, and that's covered under
Mm.
the evacuation side of their policies. If the treatment is not available locally to a satisfactory standard, which invariably it's not in a lot of countries of the world.
Is there anything that we forgot to talk about when it comes to healthcare that you it's important to address and you would like to address now?
Yeah, well, I can only stress that it is, even if you're a youngster, like you just said, a young person's more likely to get on a motorbike and perhaps have an accident and stuff like that. You have to live your life. You have to take things to the full and enjoy every aspect of it. Uh, but just around the corner, things can happen. So just make sure that you're covered. Um, get a travel insurance policy to cover all little bits and pieces that you may lose along the way. Um, but for the longer term view, look at covering your health, taking care of that, because without that, you won't even have the experience that we just spoke about. So
Yeah, be careful, especially if you're up on a motorbike in Asia, no helmets. You know, if you fall, you can actually really hurt yourself. I actually once watched someone
yeah,
in front of me, because I was driving a motorbike in Asia, and there was this guy in front of me with no helmets, and I actually saw him died in front of me.
it's awful. I
Yeah.
know it's awful. You should actually just. I mean, I just got back just yesterday from from Asia. I was in Bali 2 weeks ago, and I rented a motorbike for ease and convenience.
Mhm.
And just this one time, I didn't put my helmet on. It was just, I left it in the room, and so I'd only gone up the road, and the police were quick off the mark, and they stopped me, and I had an on-the-spot fine. So don't get into trouble either. Take safety precautions, and wear your helmet.
All right, great. So what are your plans now, Mark? Where are you going to travel next? How long are you going to spend here in the UK? And what's next? The next destination for you?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm here now until the end of September. So
Mhm.
I have a conference in London for a week, mid-September, and post that I'm going back out to Thailand, and then from there to Indonesia, and I will be returning back to the UK on like end of October, so 4 weeks later. And then it's
Right.
time to dust each other down, have a look at all the things that we're doing in time for the first quarter of next year, and start planning all over again.
Mhm. Will you ever stop traveling?
I think that's not for me to decide. Somebody up there might have different ideas. As long as I can, I guess. And it's an enjoyable experience for me. And as I say, it motivates me. And
Yeah.
yeah, so I think, yeah, if as long as I can, I'm willing and able, then yeah, it's something that I'll continue doing.
All right. Well, that's the end. That's the end of this interview. Just one last question: if people want to talk to you about healthcare or get to know you a little bit better, how can they contact you?
Well, I think you'll be putting up the details at the end of this, but and that's probably the best method. Um, we have if you visit our website as well, which is medicalfornomads.com, contact details are all on there. And indeed, if there's just some basic questions you need answering, you can use our chat service if somebody wants to chat personally, or if need be. They can choose that option too. But I would say in the first instance, if it's medical insurance related, have a look at our website. In the first instance, there's lots of frequently asked questions are on there already. But by all means, if you feel the need to speak to somebody, then we're here, and that can be arranged, no problem.
Excellent. And also, I would add that you would find that in the show notes a link that will give you a 10% discount to your first medical for nomads policy. So
Yes,
just
for sure.
take it. It's really worth it. All right, Mark, thank you very much for your time today.
You're welcome, Lauren, and good to see you again. And yeah, take care.
And thank you for listening to Destiny for Nomads podcast. I hope you've enjoyed today's episode and learned something new about digital nomadism and more importantly about healthcare. Let us know if you have any questions or comments about the show. We love hearing from our listeners and are always happy to engage in meaningful conversations, no matter where you are. See you in the next episode. Bye for now.